My fiancé said my best friend, who also happens to be my ex-girlfriend, is walking me down the aisle. If you loved me, you'd be okay with that. I said, got it. My name is Elena Tran. I'm 32 years old. I work in software development, and until 3 weeks ago, I was engaged to a man I thought I understood completely. Daniel and I had been together for 4 years. We met at a mutual friend's housewarming party. He spilled red wine on my sleeve, apologized 3 times, then offered to pay for the dry cleaning. He was warm, thoughtful, steady, the kind of man who texted good morning every day and actually meant it. The first 3 years felt effortless. We traveled, we built routines, we survived my career pivot into tech and his promotion at work. When he proposed last October at the beach where we had our first date, I cried before he even finished the sentence. Our families cried when we told them. Everyone said we were solid. The shift started in January when wedding planning became real instead of romantic. Guest lists, deposits, seating charts. Suddenly, Daniel started mentioning Chloe more than usual. Chloe this, Chloe that. Chloe and I backpacked through Spain after college. Chloe knows my mom better than anyone. Chloe says August sunsets photograph best. I'd heard about her before. They dated for 2 years in their early 20s. It ended amicably, he always said. We were better as friends. I believed him. I wanted to be the kind of woman who wasn't threatened by history. One night in early February, I asked casually while we were folding laundry. So you two were serious, right? He didn't look up. That was a long time ago, Elena. I know. I'm just asking. He sighed. Yes, we were serious, but that's over. She's one of my closest friends now. Closer than me. He finally met my eyes. Different. She knew me before I became who I am now. It wasn't a satisfying answer. I told myself not to make something out of nothing. That was my first mistake. March 15th. Sunday dinner at his mother's house. His father passed away when Daniel was 17. It had always been the quiet shadow behind big milestones. Graduation, promotions, our engagement. Dinner was halfway through when his mother gently asked, "Have you thought about who's walking you down the aisle?" Daniel went quiet. His sister Amanda paused mid-bite. I felt the air change before he spoke. "I've been thinking about it a lot," he said slowly. "I want Chloe to walk me." The fork slipped from Amanda's hand and hit the plate. His mother blinked. "Chloe, your friend Chloe." "Yes," he said. Calm, certain. "She's been there for everything. Dad would have liked her." My pulse started thudding in my ears. "That's usually a family role," I said carefully. "What about your Uncle Min or your mom?" "I want Chloe." He didn't look at me when he said it. "This is my wedding too," he continued, "and she's one of the most important people in my life." The table was silent. His mother looked confused. Amanda looked uncomfortable. I kept my voice level. "She's your ex-girlfriend, Daniel." So his jaw tightened. That was 10 years ago. It sends a message. It sends the message that I honor people who stood by me. The drive home was silent except for the turn signal clicking too loudly. That night in bed, I tried again. "Help me understand," I said quietly. "Having your ex walk you down the aisle, that's not small. It's symbolic." He sat up abruptly. "Are you serious right now?" "I'm trying to be." "You're jealous of a friendship." "It's not just a friendship when she's replacing your father in that moment." His laugh was sharp. "God, Elena, you're making this ugly. I'm telling you how it feels." He looked at me like I'd disappointed him. "Chloe has loved me unconditionally since we were 20. She knows parts of me you never saw." That one landed. "And what does that make me?" I asked. "You're making this about ego." "No," I whispered. "I'm making it about partnership." He stood up pacing. "My best friend, who also happens to be my ex-girlfriend, is walking me down the aisle. If you loved me, you'd be okay with that." There it was. Not discussion. Not compromise. A test. I stared at him for a long moment. My chest felt hollow, not angry, just clear. "Got it," I said. He relaxed instantly as if I'd passed. He kissed my cheek. "Thank you for understanding." He fell asleep in minutes. I didn't sleep at all. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying his words. "She knows parts of me you never saw. One of the most important people in my life. If you loved me." Somewhere between 2 a.m. and sunrise, something inside me went still. Love doesn't demand erasure. At 7:30 a.m., Daniel left for work like always. He kissed my forehead, unaware that the version of me he knew had already shifted. At 8:05 a.m., I picked up my phone, and I called the venue. "Good morning, this is Jennifer at Seabrook Events." Her voice was bright, cheerful, unaware. "Hi, Jennifer. This is Elena Tran. I need to cancel our wedding reservation for August 12th. Silence. Not confusion, not static, just a pause heavy enough to feel. "Oh," she said carefully. I'm sorry to hear that. Is everything all right?" "Just need to cancel." Can you walk me through the policy? Her tone shifted into professional mode. We had paid the 50% deposit, $12,000 non-refundable per contract. Canceling now meant we wouldn't owe the remaining balance. I'll send the cancellation confirmation and final invoice this afternoon, she added quietly. I'm really sorry. Thank you. I hung up and immediately dialed the caterer, then the florist, then the photographer, the DJ, the cake designer. Each call followed the same rhythm. Yes, I understand the deposit is forfeited. Yes, please send the invoice. By noon, I had 6 emails sitting in my inbox. Total cost, $28,000. Daniel had paid for his suit and the printed invitations, about $4,000 total. I had covered everything else because I made more money, because I wanted to, because partnership meant generosity. I opened my laptop and compiled every invoice into a single PDF. I stared at the total one more time. It wasn't the money that hurt. It was the clarity. I drafted a simple email. Subject line, wedding cancellation confirmation. No explanation, just the attached file. Then I hit send. A moment later, I texted him. Check your email when you have a minute. I packed a duffel bag, jeans, sweaters, my laptop, my passport, not because I planned to travel, but because I wanted nothing left in that apartment that felt irreplaceable. At 1:42 p.m., my phone lit up. Daniel, I let it ring. He called again, and again, and again. By the 6th call, texts began flooding in. What did you do? Elena, tell me this isn't real. You canceled everything. This is insane. Call me right now. At 5:03 p.m., I finally replied. You told me Chloe is one of the most important people in your life, and that she's walking you down the aisle. I realized you're right. You should marry someone who's okay with that. I'm not. Since she's walking you down the aisle anyway, I figured she could help with the venue too. The invoices show exactly what was canceled. My phone rang before I finished reading my own message back. I answered. You vindictive child, he shouted immediately. Do you have any idea what you've done? I canceled a wedding, I said evenly. That shouldn't be happening. You ended 4 years over. Who walks me down the aisle? No, I replied. You ended it when you told me my comfort was negotiable. It's symbolic. Yes, I said, it is. He exhaled sharply. Chloe is not a threat to you. That's not the point. You're jealous. I'm choosing not to compete. Silence crackled between us. We can fix this, he said, finally voice softer. We can talk it through. I'll explain it better. Are you willing to have someone else walk you down the aisle? There it was again. The pause. Long. Heavy. That's not fair, he muttered. That's what I thought. I hung up. At 9:48 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Doorbell camera notification. Daniel. He was standing outside my friend Mai's apartment. I had come straight here after sending the email. Mai looked at me from the couch. You want me to handle it? I nodded. She opened the door just enough to speak through the chain. She doesn't want to see you. I'm not leaving, he said loudly. Elena, this is ridiculous. His voice carried down the hallway. Neighbors' doors cracked open. You're ruining both our lives over nothing, he shouted. I walked toward the door, but didn't open it. Nothing, I called back. It was one moment, one symbolic moment. No, I said. It was a preview. You're overreacting. Then you'll be fine without me. He stood there for almost 20 minutes. Anger turned into pleading. Pleading turned into frustration. Frustration turned into quiet. Before he left, he said one last thing. You're throwing away someone who loved you. I almost opened the door then. Almost. But love without respect is just attachment. The hallway went silent. Mai locked the door and handed me a glass of water. You okay? I nodded, though my hands were shaking. It wasn't rage. It wasn't triumph. It was grief clean and sharp. The next morning, March 17th, I woke up to a text from his sister, Amanda. Can we talk just you and me? Coffee? We met at a small cafe downtown. Amanda looked exhausted. Elena, she began quietly. I need you to know something. I braced myself. He called Chloe last night, told her what happened. My stomach tightened, and I asked. Amanda stirred her coffee but didn't drink it. She never agreed to walk him down the aisle. I blinked. What? He mentioned it once weeks ago. She told him it would be inappropriate, that it would disrespect you. She said absolutely not. The cafe noise faded into a dull hum. He pushed it anyway, Amanda continued. He thought if he framed it as honoring Dad, she'd eventually say yes. I stared at her. So he built this whole fight on something she already refused. My chest felt hollow again, but different this time. He told her you were being insecure, Amanda said softly. She told him he was being selfish. I leaned back in my chair. $28,000. 4 years. All of it over a stand he created alone. Where does that leave him, I asked. Amanda's eyes welled slightly. $28,000 in lost deposits. No wedding. And Chloe won't take his calls this morning. I looked down at my untouched coffee. The quiet clarity from 2 nights ago returned. This wasn't about jealousy. It was about boundaries. And he had crossed them before the wedding even happened. Amanda reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I'm sorry," she whispered. So was I. The truth should have made me feel victorious. It didn't. It made me tired. Amanda and I sat in that cafe longer than either of us planned to. She told me Chloe had been furious when Daniel called her. She said, "I will not be a prop in your relationship." Those were her exact words, Amanda said quietly. I let that sink in. A prop. That's what I would have been too. He told her you were overreacting, Amanda continued. She told him he was sabotaging his own marriage before it started. Marriage. The word felt distant now. Did he know she said no? I asked. Amanda hesitated. He thought she'd change her mind. Of course he did. He'd presented it to me as certainty, as a done deal, as if I was the only obstacle left to overcome, which meant he was willing to pressure both of us. That realization hurt more than the original request. It wasn't grief driving him. It was entitlement. That afternoon, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Daniel's mother. "Elena, sweetheart," she said softly when I answered. Her voice was strained. "I'm not calling to change your mind." I swallowed. I'd always loved her. "I'm calling to apologize for what I asked, for raising a son who thought love meant winning." The words hit harder than she probably intended. "I don't think he meant to hurt anyone," I said, automatically defending him out of habit. "That doesn't erase the hurt," she replied. She told me Daniel had come home furious the night before, pacing their living room, ranting about pride and symbolism. Chloe had sent him a long message refusing again and telling him she wouldn't attend the wedding if he kept pushing it. She said he was using her as emotional leverage, his mother explained, and that she refused to be the reason his fiancé felt small. I closed my eyes. Small. That was the word I hadn't been able to articulate. "That young woman showed more respect for your relationship than my son did," she added quietly. Silence stretched between us. "Your father would have been ashamed of this," she murmured. That broke something inside me, because Daniel had always feared disappointing his father's memory. And now he had. "She's moving back home for a while," his mother continued. "Amanda's helping him cancel the invitations. I offered to cover half the deposits if he apologized to you, and you both tried counseling." And I asked, though I already knew. He said you should apologize first. Of course he did. That night, mutual friends began reaching out. Some were supportive immediately once they heard the full story. Others were less kind. It was one walk down the aisle. You could have compromised. Weddings are emotional. But none of them had been in that bedroom when he'd said, "If you loved me." None of them had felt the quiet dismissal. On March 20th, Daniel finally sent a long text. I read it 3 times. He said he felt blindsided. He said I'd humiliated him. He said he'd only wanted to honor someone important from his past. He said he never meant to choose Chloe over me. But nowhere in the message did he say he was wrong. Nowhere did he say he understood. Nowhere did he say he'd have chosen differently. I didn't respond. 2 days later, Chloe texted me. Her message was short. "I'm sorry he dragged me into this. For what it's worth, I told him it was inappropriate. You deserve better than being tested like that." I stared at her name on my screen for a long time. The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman I was supposed to feel threatened by was the only one who never disrespected me. I thanked her. She replied with a simple, "Take care of yourself." By the end of that week, Daniel's isolation was obvious. Amanda told me he'd stopped answering friends who disagreed with him. Chloe had blocked him after their last argument. "He keeps saying you overreacted," Amanda said during a brief call, "but he's also not sleeping." I didn't feel satisfaction, just distance. There's a strange calm that settles in after you make a decision that costs you everything. You don't question it every hour. You just live inside it. One evening, I drove back to the apartment while Daniel was at work. Amanda had confirmed his schedule. The place looked the same. Our framed engagement photo still sat on the shelf. The couch still had the throw blanket I bought last winter. The air still smelled faintly like his cologne. I packed methodically. Clothes, books, my grandmother's bracelet, the small ceramic bowl we bought in Hoi An during our trip 2 years ago. I left the bigger furniture. I didn't want to argue over chairs and coffee tables. On the kitchen counter, I placed my key. Beside it, a single note. "I hope you find someone who loves you enough to disappear for you." I'm not that person. I closed the door behind me and didn't look back. 3 weeks passed. The wedding day came and went quietly. No music, no flowers, no aisle, just another Saturday. I started therapy. On my second session, my therapist said something that settled deep in my chest. Love doesn't survive where respect is conditional. I repeated that sentence in my mind for days. Daniel called once more after that. I didn't answer. Amanda later told me he had finally admitted to her at least that he pushed too hard. "That's who I am," he'd said. "I don't back down." Exactly. 3 weeks after I canceled the wedding, I signed a lease on a small, one-bedroom apartment across town. It wasn't grand. No ocean view. No open-concept kitchen like the one Daniel and I had picked out together when we thought we'd buy someday. But it was mine. I spent the first night sitting on the floor surrounded by unopened boxes, eating takeout noodles straight from the carton. The quiet didn't feel lonely. It felt honest. That same evening, Daniel's mother called again. "Elena," she said gently, "I won't keep you long. I just wanted you to know. Chloe has stopped speaking to him completely." I didn't respond immediately. She told him he used her father's death as emotional leverage. His mother continued. She said she won't be part of a story where another woman is made to feel replaceable. Replaceable. That word echoed longer than Small had. He didn't mean it that way, she added quickly. But meaning doesn't erase impact. "No," I said softly, "it doesn't." She exhaled. "He's started seeing a therapist." I absorbed that quietly. "Thank you for loving him," she whispered before hanging up. That part hurt more than the anger ever did. A few days later, Amanda met me for lunch. She looked lighter than before. "He's finally admitting he framed it as an ultimatum," she said. "He told his therapist he thought if you agreed it would prove you were fully committed." I let out a small breath. So that was it. It wasn't about Chloe. It wasn't about grief. It was about control disguised as devotion. "He says you embarrassed him," Amanda added carefully, "but he also says he didn't expect you to choose yourself." That almost made me laugh. For years I had been the accommodating one, the patient one, the one who softened my tone so he wouldn't feel challenged. I swallowed my discomfort to keep the peace, until the night he asked me to prove my love by shrinking. I didn't hate Daniel. That was the surprising part. I understood him more clearly now than I ever had while we were together. He wanted devotion that bent. I wanted partnership that stood. Those two things look similar from far away. Up close, they are not the same. The wedding date, August 12th, arrived quietly. I woke up that morning expecting to feel something dramatic. Anger, sadness, regret. Instead, I felt steady. I went for a long walk. I bought myself coffee. I passed a florist arranging white roses outside her shop window. For a second, my chest tightened. Then it loosened. Somewhere across town, Daniel probably felt the weight of what might have been. I didn't check. That night, I opened my laptop and deleted the shared wedding folder. Contracts, seating charts, draft vows. I paused before deleting the vow file. I had written the first paragraph weeks earlier. I promised to choose us even when it's uncomfortable. I closed the document without rereading it, because I had kept that promise, just not in the way he expected. A week later, Chloe sent one final message. "I hope you're doing okay." For what it's worth, I told him that if he truly loved you, he would have prioritized you without making you compete for it. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "I am okay, thank you." That was the last time I heard from her. Daniel never reached out again after that final, unanswered call. Amanda told me he's still unpacking everything in therapy. The need to test love, the fear of abandonment, the way he equated agreement with loyalty. I genuinely hope he grows. But growth isn't something I needed to supervise. Sometimes people ask if I regret canceling everything the way I did. $28,000 gone. 4 years gone. A wedding erased in a single morning. Maybe it looked impulsive from the outside, but it wasn't rage. It was recognition. Recognition that I was being asked to step aside at my own wedding. Recognition that if you loved me isn't romance, it's pressure. Recognition that I would spend a lifetime negotiating my worth if I said yes that night. My therapist once asked me a simple question. If you had married him, what would you have taught yourself about your value? I didn't need time to answer. That it was flexible. That it was negotiable. That it could be bargained away for harmony. I refused to learn that lesson. I don't know who Daniel will become. I don't know if he'll look back one day and understand the exact moment everything shifted. Not when I called the venue, not when I sent the invoice, but when he framed love as a test. What I do know is this. I didn't cancel a wedding because of who walked him down the aisle. I canceled it because I refused to walk into a marriage where my place was optional. And for the first time in a long time, choosing myself didn't feel selfish. It felt like coming home.